Hello everybody. Welcome to the Mindful Entrepreneur series. Today we've got on my guest Maz Sajady,
Thank you so much.
and Maz is a really interesting guy. Um, he's done success one way, and he's
Yes.
doing success another way now.
Yes.
And really, for what I wanted to do with this video series is really interview people who are generating success, but in a very wholesome way,
Right.
and share that knowledge with entrepreneurs.
Right.
Because I've always believed that, having been ill myself, having been on the sort of the greasy pole of a corporate career,
Right.
got really ill,
Of course.
become a consultant and then an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
I always sensed my entrepreneuring had to be built around well-being and health as the
Yes.
primary thing. But I struggled with it for years, and then I came across your work, and I find it fascinating
Thank you.
because you've kind of got a really interesting take on it.
Yes.
Um, One of the things I want to just lay a foundation piece for
Okay.
this discussion
Hmm.
is the basis of kind of transactions that don't particularly add value and don't uplift the business or the entrepreneur and the customer versus
Okay.
transactions that are sourced in a wholesomeness that not only lift up the entrepreneur or the sales but also uplift the customer. It's something.
So say that again.
So
You're talking about transactions.
yeah, it's like the basis of business is transaction,
Right.
selling things,
Of
buying
course.
things, and we sort of uplifting people through that transaction.
Right.
And I was interested in what your take was in that from your point of view of
Hmm.
how you've done like your business in your first your IT business and
Hmm.
now this business. What perhaps the differences are in
Right.
that.
And I think giving that example is pretty much the standard process on how most businesses see transactions or that exchange of goods and services. Um, and my experience comes from two near-death experiences, so I see things from say, a grander level. Sometimes when I talk about, say, a near-death experience, and just tapping into the audience, sometimes business people don't want to listen to that because it's like, oh, this is about being good and not becoming wealthy. That makes sense to you?
Mm.
Because that's that feeling. It's like, oh, this is about being happy where you are and singing kumbaya and stuff like that. It's got nothing to do with that. That's an old version, and obviously not an accurate version of, say, being complete or, as you said, wholesome. So in the old paradigm, Feifei, can you take this? Because and just keep quiet again. Sorry. So in the old paradigm, or
Mm.
um, the way transactions occur, is that a company has an objective, right,
Mm.
of selling a product or service, and that objective is to make, say, the maximum profits per
Mm.
service or product, right? And then over time, although they have good intent, they started with a good intent of, say, helping people, right? Whatever, say you have a product about helping people or getting people into health. And then over time, the company gets bigger, and then the objective gets lost. The main purpose of why they're in business gets lost, and then their objective is like, well, how do we create more profit per item?
Mm.
Simple as that. If you look at any reason why a company does what they do, it's about maximizing profit and minimizing costs. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right? Although there's different ways of, say, skinning the cat. I don't know where that expression came from. Skinning the cat. Have you heard that expression? Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. But anyway, uh, any company, okay, or any institution of value, even say religious or spiritual, it's about, say, maximizing profits with, say, and again reducing costs. But when you look at that model,
Mm.
and this is where it gets key for people, and I work with a lot of CEOs and companies and entrepreneurs and so on, to get to their, say, highest level. But most companies, like I said, they look at that model thinking it's the most efficient. But if you look at the collateral damage of that model, it goes. It's really, really expensive. Look at the employee turnover because the employees aren't happy, right? Look at how many sick days people take. Look at, say, and again, this isn't my statistics. This is from coming from CEOs, and I read it in some source. Excuse me, I forgot the source, but they said that most of their employees, the work can be done by about say 20 or 30% of the employees. The other, say, 80%, 70% are not needed. But because the company is so inefficient with this model, they would have to have, say, 70% more employees to do the work. So again, if you ask yourself, is that an efficient model? Look at the products that you're sending out. Okay? Is it the optimum product or service? And nowadays, efficiencies and technologies have gotten to the point that that a lot of products have the same, say, quality, although there's perceived value. Right? You can buy a purse that's just as good at, and again, I'm not knocking down purse makers. That's $100 purse compared to $1,000 purse compared to, say, a $50,000 purse. I mean, the quality value, or is it that much of a variance to it, or are they just adding, say, a feel good? Right? I bought this purse for $50,000 because it makes me feel good. Right? So, and that kind of leads into what I do or what we help is that perceived value. Now, in say high brand marketing or luxury brand marketing, they have a perceived value that's not based on anything. Right? It's a perceived value that somebody created. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like celebrity endorsements,
Celebrity
or
endorsements,
a history of quality and
right,
reputation.
right. It's something that what that person wants to get out of, say, a Coach purse or a Louis Vuitton purse. And I'm not picking on purses or watches or anything like that. They're totally fine. But why would somebody want to spend that kind of money? Right? Because they want to feel good on the inside. Why does somebody want to buy any product? They want to feel good and complete on the inside. Does that make sense? Right? So this new business paradigm is like, it's not on perceived value because that's a facade. What I help companies do is that I bring in, and I work with the top level or the person that say runs the company, is that when you have a business model that you are your best possible self, you are complete or congruent with your value system. And the value system is not based on religion, spiritual notions, or society's motion. It's a human value system. So your core level, or what I call it, say your pure concentrated version of self. Right? So if you're based on that value system, one, you're very charismatic. So bosses or leaders who are very charismatic, that's what they have. Right? Two, it blends down on your employees. So if you're congruent with your value system, right, your employees feel that, right, and they become healthier. They become more vibrant. They get excited because when they come to work, that actually is a place of congruency, and they actually feel good being there. So your health values, your systems, the cost expenditures, sick days, and so on like that. Because most of companies, their highest cost is employees and employee sick days. So all that starts to go down or go away. But when you have happy employees and you have, say, connected employees, look at what happens at the creativity, the efficiencies that they can create, right? Because they're on the line, they're on the manufacturing floor or service floor, right? They get more and more in tune, and you become highly an efficient system.
I call that sort of concept 1 + 1 makes 2, or 1 + 1 makes 11.
True.
So it's the old transactional way of doing business of, like you say, squeezing the costs and trying to maximise the profit.
Right.
Versus this je ne sais quoi factor, that this
Yeah.
extra this sort of intrinsic added
Right.
value that we're
Right.
talking
Exactly.
about here.
Right.
And so perhaps for the smaller entrepreneur, like the
Mm-hmm.
one-man band or the coach, the
Mm-hmm.
consultant, someone who's an inventor,
Right.
people
Okay.
who are starting out small, how can they um, bring this added value into what they do? This is an area I'm really passionate about, is helping the smaller business person
Okay.
as well
Right.
really identify their kind of this purity of opportunity
Mm-hmm.
where 1 + 1 makes 11, not
Right.
two, and this added value and this brand value that they can bring through.
Okay.
How can they orientate themselves to that?
It's very similar
Mm.
to whether you're a large corporation or a one-man band. Is that what you're selling is not the product or service.
That's the key.
That, yes, again, that's the key. What you're selling is you, the frequencies that say resonate in you that transfer into the product or service.
Mm.
Right? So if you're resonating at, say, a higher level frequency, again, outside of, say, notions of what higher level frequencies are about, right? If you're resonating at a higher, like, and I call it exponential intelligence, right?
Mm.
Um, so if you're resonating with exponential intelligence frequencies, the product and service that you have, when people buy it, they feel those pure frequencies. And that's what they're actually looking for. They want to feel good about what they're buying, whether it's a product or service. And by feeling good, it's not about um, it's how would I say it's not about, say, the physical level of feeling good, but the deep down, say, completeness that everybody is searching for. Does that make sense?
Mm. So, looking at sort of in Britain, we've got certain
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs who've risen up, say like Alan Sugar. He was
Okay.
selling TVs and
Mm-hmm.
aerials from the back of his car.
Oh, nice.
He's now he runs Dragon's Den,
Mm-hmm.
so he was the equivalent to your president
Oh, okay.
in our country, and he's the guy who's the anchor for Dragon's Den, the
Mm.
big entrepreneur.
Okay, okay.
And so people who are sort of starting up and they're wanting to sort of grow their businesses,
Mm-hmm.
how can they connect with this essence in themselves
Okay.
that can help grow their business? This sort of je ne sais quoi factor of 1
Mm-hmm.
+ 1 makes 11,
Right.
so it's rather than a simple transaction that isn't really going to maximize their profit. This ability to connect with something
Mm-hmm.
greater,
Right.
and have that value.
Right. So that, like you said, that ability to connect to something greater. Most people think that that ability is outside of themselves,
Mm.
and they start losing themselves. So they start focusing, say, on the product or service, right? But again, like, how good can your product or service be to distinguish yourself? Um, in your niche. That makes sense?
Mm.
Especially if
Mm.
you have a lot of competition. So, what's it going to take for you? So, you go inward. You start to understand or realize, say, all the distortions or the incompleteness that you are. That's actually a hard thing to look at. That's why
Mm.
there's not a lot of people who are, say, completely happily successful, or what I call significant success. It's actually a facade. Success becomes a facade.
Yeah.
Um,
And so yeah, just getting something like most successful businessmen and businesswomen are people who've lost everything at some point,
Pretty
or
much.
had an illness, had a disaster,
Yes.
and have had to almost be stripped of their kind of filters or their
Right.
understandings of what they think business is.
Of course.
And as if they've made it all and lost it all, or they've had like I've had illnesses and had to really be stripped down. And
Hmm.
then when you come back, you're kind of simplified inside, and
Yes.
you don't have those perhaps hang-ups.
True.
And yet, when we're out there trying to hustle and make a living, we're
Hmm.
not thinking of those things.
Right.
We're
Right.
looking outside of ourselves for the
Exactly.
success. We're looking outside
Exactly.
of ourselves for the result. We're not looking at what's
Hmm.
actually influencing our mindset inside.
True. True. In fact, that's happened to me. I had like all the toys. I had a yacht. I had a $2 million home and everything. And I lost on that because most individuals who say get successful in that fashion is they think that if you have a certain amount of money, that you're going to be, say, secure and complete and happy. Well, I was neither of those. I was very insecure because it's like, well, how do you maintain this level of lifestyle consistently? Right? That goes through a lot of people. And by the way, a lot of people driving luxury cars and so on like that, they might be house rich, but very poor on the inside. Or actually, in their bank account, they're very poor as well. It's literally a facade. So that's one of the issues. So I lost it all, by the way, because I was doing it all. I was thinking that success or the security that we're all looking for comes from, say, in this case, in my case, was money, having enough money as a nest egg. But I lost everything, and there was a pivotal point where pretty much I was backed against the corner, and it's like I couldn't lose anything else, literally. And it got to the point, it's like, and this is where you just break down, and well, it's a breaking point. When you get to that breaking point, like you said, you get to that breaking point, and this voice came into me. It's like, well, what have you really lost? And then at that moment, what happened was I started to see an understanding of the grandness of who we are. Okay? In my first near death, I just want to back up. So I had two near deaths. The first near death, I understood the grandness of who we are. But when this situation happened to me, it was after my second near death, it really hit home. Because you can understand, you can even experience, say, the grandness of who we are, right? Because I've seen, again, two times, the grandness of who we are. I've lived the grandness of who we are. But then to apply it in a physical, say, format, I never knew how to do that. So when I broke down completely, and the breakdown is not a mental breakdown, but a consciousness of who you think you are. So once that breaks down, right, your higher version or the grandness of who you are, you start operating from that frequency. And then from that point on, it's like I never really looked back. Things started accumulating for me. My abilities as far as like helping or transforming people's lives started to expand and grow. The wealth started coming back. So like you said, it's like those individuals who say do it properly, most likely they've made the wealth, they've lost it, they've eliminated all those things they thought wealth was. Okay? And then and for me, it's obviously at a much, much deeper level. And now it comes back and it's just like solid. So wealth is now defined, or I call it significant success. It's defined on the brilliance of who you are on the inside reflects the level of wealth that you are on the outside. So wealth becomes not a facade or a facade of the fakeness of who you are. Right? Because most people cover their wealth up or create, say, this facade around them thinking, look at me, I'm wealthy, I drive a luxury car, I have beautiful women on my arms, whatever, and I control like thousands of people and so on. But in the inside, they're very, very insecure. They've lost their families, they've gotten divorced, or all those things that they've lost their health, like you were talking about, right? To do it significantly is very, very different. You say the relationships that are important for you, they expand and grow. The health that you have, you look more younger and vibrant with the wealth that you accumulate. The luxury items or cars reflect who you are. It's not a facade. It's not a fake of who you are. And you've seen people who drive nice cars. They get out and you look at the guy. It's like the guy doesn't belong there. It just doesn't fit them, right? But when people are significantly successful, you look at that car and they get out of that car. And it's like, damn, that car looks good on him. Not the other way.
So just roll that back one step.
Of course.
We're talking about, when we're trying to appeal to entrepreneurs here and inspire them, they might think, right, well, I need to learn about social media. I need to learn about developing my brand. I need to learn about networking.
Right.
I need to learn about cash flow, investment management, all these things that we are taught to think is
Right.
about being successful, being a good entrepreneur, being a good business person.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what we're both talking about, and we've both had experience of, is
Mm-hmm.
it's actually, those are more like, so on your phone, those are more like the apps,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something not quite ironed out in the bugs in the operating system.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's the message that I'd really love everyone watching this video to get, is
Mm-hmm.
that when you start to realize that being a successful entrepreneur isn't about just focusing on those things,
Mm-hmm.
because then the core underlying issues
Of course.
keep undermining your ability to be successful.
True. So if you look at any successful entrepreneur, but outside of us, let's say, um, they never worried about social media or all the logistics of a business. Although when people are starting the business, what do they focus on most? The logistics of the business. You know, if you have like an innate, say, desire or a completeness inside you, within you, and if you look at any successful entrepreneur, that that that's hugely successful, okay? Or even mediocre, not, I wouldn't say mediocre successful, but happy. They created an essence of themselves. They know exactly who they are. Money does not define them. They define money. Luxury items does not define them. Their products and services um, does not define them. They define the products and services. Does that make sense? So that's what we're looking for. And I think you and I would both agree that you really have to clean up on the inside and define who you are before you define a market, or you define a product or your niche in a certain, say, market segment, your social media, the type of, say, the, even the colors that you choose for your logo. Because if you're running a distorted version of yourself, your product or service, basically your company, is an extension of you. It's your child, right? If you're corrupt, your product and service will be corrupt and distorted.
That's quite hard-hitting information, isn't it?
Yes.
That's really, I mean, and I think what we're talking about here is literally turning the business model on its head
Yes.
and looking on the inside out,
Yes.
which is often what would put a business person off, because they think, oh, that's woo-woo. If I wanted to see a shrink, if I wanted to see a healer, that's not business. I wouldn't do that to work on my business. But I personally found that actually clearing these core issues out myself, working actually with yourself, has helped me to really identify the patterns of where I've failed in my entrepreneuring before,
Right.
where my health's failed, and my choices of colleagues, choosing a narcissistic business partner, unreliable web designer, all these things that actually undermine the success of a business actually come from clearing the inside patterns out.
True.
And
That's very true.
that's something to perhaps get your head around, which is really paradigm shifting, that it's actually doing this inner work.
Exactly.
But then there's a whole minefield about finding the right tools and the right people to go through if you're doing the inner work and business together.
Right.
Which is what I really want. This is perfect conversation to have for this video.
Right. And even successful individuals who have written books, or you ask them, it's like, what are the key traits? And they always go like, set goals, and it'll work. But then a lot of people like set goals or work hard and it'll work. They don't even know what made them successful. They just have, say, a material, a value or understanding of what made them successful. So we have to get down to the deep, deep layer, or the key components of why those individuals are successful. Why is it that when they set goals, it manifests? Right? Why is it that they're, say, so-called lucky? Right? Why is it that they can materialize whatever that they need, right? In the right time, the right moment, the right situation, right? You can't get that, planning. You can't get that with the right social media, the right web. Let me give you a real example. So, for example, say that you run patterns where you lose money. There's people who do that, right? They just can't hold on to money. Okay? No matter what you do. So now you start a business. You've got perfect web designer, the perfect logo maker, the perfect product, and so on like that. Okay, that extension of your pattern of losing money goes into your product, and it happens all the time, right? Because you're an extension of your product or service. So even if the company was successful, you'll probably attract a corrupt business partner that steals your money away. And by the way, these are real life experiences that I've worked with. Okay, not just once, but time and time again. People will say attract a corrupt business partner that just totally destroys or steals their money, or something happens, or they get sued, or whatever it is. The point is that no matter what they do to become successful, it's always ridden with losing money.
So even if they've got the widget with wings, the best product ever, even if they've got like the perfect lead on the market with their expertise, if you don't clear these patterns out from the inside, that comes to bite you on the bottom.
Oh, definitely. In fact, the perfect widget with wings. There's tons of widgets with wings that would be the perfect product. And if you look at all the failures, they were the perfect product. But why didn't they make it? Why is I hate to say it, like a half-assed product more successful than, say, that perfect product? And it happens all the time with companies, right? They have, a fantastic product, much better than any other product in its category. But then yet again, they're low on sales. Their company has problems, and then there's this mediocre product that everybody falls in love with, because it's not about the product; it's about the frequencies behind that product. In fact, for us, and again, whether you're a small individual, but I'll just give you an example on how important this is. Apple, okay? Steve Jobs. Right? So look at Steve Jobs, brilliant, an amazing individual. I'm not that impressed with him. I'm very impressed with his abilities and technical knowledge and so on, and getting a product out. And I'll tell you why I wasn't impressed with him. But now that I've piqued everybody's interest, is that whether he got fired? But anyway, he got kicked out, ousted from his own company.
Steve Jobs, yeah.
Steve Jobs, right? So what happened to Apple? It went bankrupt. Right? First time around.
Did it? Didn't make sense.
It went bankrupt. Yeah. So it went bankrupt. So it got to the point that they wanted him back. When they brought him back in, Apple took off for the second time.
He was the key ingredient.
He was the key ingredient. So they had amazing products, right? And now he passed away. Look at Apple. Before, he was just a volatile, just high-flying, say, company, right? If you look at their products, it's just mediocre right now. There's tons of
losing
other
the edge on the market,
right? Because it's that personality of that CEO. It's not just about his innovations, right? But it was the zest and the desire to be the best. Look at Elon Musk, right? So why is he so charismatic? That charisma is what drives the company. That charisma is what gets investors going, damn, I want to invest with Elon. So what if you had that charisma? Again, that goes outside your web or your image, your company image. And it's you. You are the product and service that you're selling. Even if nobody sees you, you are the product because you're in that. You're in the product and service. And when people say buy your product and take that product and service home, they're taking your essence home, literally.
That's the key.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that's so vital. It's that.
Exactly.
So it's purifying that essence.
Yes.
I used to have a brand name called Guru Marketing, and I'd help people in my own way get to that essence.
Yes.
But I wasn't very successful at it. For a time
Can I tell you why?
Go on. Yeah, go for it.
Because you weren't pure.
Exactly. Yeah, and I had a job teaching on MBA programs. I had a job teaching at the college School of Social Entrepreneurs, and I helped quite a few people, but I couldn't quite get it to take off. I couldn't get the continuity. That was like a common hallmark with my work. I'd get a big break.
Exactly.
I'd do a corporate rollout, say, for an emotional resilience for entrepreneurs course across a big a big company, 300 staff, 300 people on the training course, and then that would be it. It would kind of stumble to a halt.
Right.
And so I had the ability to burn bright,
Right.
but not consistently and
Fizzle out.
enduring. Yeah, I'd fizzle out. And so what I now have sort of starting to learn about myself through working with yourself is to get to the core issues that were stopping me from burning bright,
Exactly.
that was sabotaging myself, or limits in my kind of bugs in who I am.
True.
And learning to kind of iron those out, clear them out, and then upload a new, like with your iPhone, then you upload a new,
Of course.
operating system that's free of the bugs.
Right. So with what you said, so cleaning yourself out, so to speak, and just like creating an efficiency in you translates into products and services.
Yes,
That's what you're
that's
selling.
what's almost confounding. It like
Exactly.
defies logic.
It defies logic. But if you look at any successful product or service, look at the person behind that product or service. Don't look at the product or service. And then you'll understand why that product or service was, say, successful. So some of you might ask, well, I don't even know who made this product or service. It doesn't matter because it's the frequencies that are in, it's the personality basically gets instilled in the product and service that you're sending out.
And you can't manufacture
You can't
that
manufacture that.
sort of magic. Like Dale
No.
Carnegie kind of had a way of, how to make friends and influence people, that quite influential business training for 20s and 30s. But there's a real fakeness, I find,
There
to
was.
that way of being.
There
It was
was.
like, how can I be a chameleon?
Exactly.
Turn myself out of shape to appease and please and impress people,
True.
but not actually be like pure on the inside, like clear out what my issues were on the
Right.
inside.
Now, if you were pure and then you did the theories of how to influence, right? What is it?
How to make friends and
How to
influence
make
people.
how to make friends and influence people. It wouldn't devastate you. It wouldn't destroy you. You wouldn't feel like a chameleon, right? Because you know who you are exactly. A lot of business people, they fake who they are so they can become successful. It never works out for them.
Well, in any
Never
line of
ever
business,
works
if
out.
you're being someone different at work to who you are in your private life, and
Right.
there's such a radical split, the energy
Exactly.
it takes to do that and the incongruences,
Exactly.
therefore you can't bring all of your power to what you do.
Exactly. Exactly. And it creates a lot of inefficiencies, which costs you heavily. Not just at a physical level, like money, but mentally, right? Socially. And I say this because people think that they have this dream that they're going to be, say, a successful entrepreneur, or a CEO of a company, and then you're flying high. I work with a lot of those people. They're not flying high. They're not. They've got so many addictions. They've got so many issues. They've got health issues. Again, it's everything that they were before they became successful, magnified. That's all that
It's
wealth
crazy,
does.
isn't it? That success, either a lot of success, a lot of money, a lot of status, it amplifies what you've got. And if you've got
Exactly.
insecurities, and we've used the word impurity, and I want to come back to that to sort of explain that to people watching, because it's a bit
Yes.
of a hot potato, that word. So, you know, I got, when I was 25, I was made European marketing manager.
Okay.
And, I had a lot of success at a very young age. And it amplified my neuroticisms, my issues. And although I enjoyed success, it also made life much more painful, much more stressful, much more
Exactly.
difficult. And I didn't really enjoy my success.
Right.
I didn't really have a great social life. I got ill. And my only outlet was being successful, but didn't have like a rounded life.
Right. Right. It happens quite a bit. I work with a lot of people like that. Um, um, and it's not a natural state to be because you're here. Success creates another frequency. Say that's here. You combine the two, and if you're not resonating properly with that success, say it'll destroy you rather than enhance you.
Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah. So So, like I said, success is a magnifier. So, so if you're off balance, right? Let's say that you're driving a car. One of the wheels is off, right? It's off. So you're going at a slow speed. It might be okay, but then as you become more and more successful, in this case, as you speed up, you're going 50, 60, 80 miles an hour. The tire is going back and forth, faster and faster. You get thrown off. You get shaky. Your world gets shaky. You can't hold on to the
It's become
steering
more
wheel.
unstable.
You become more and more and more and more unstable. And then what happens is that, well, you try to become more successful, going, well, if I become more successful, then I'll stabilize. Well, it gets worse and worse because you're going faster and everything gets magnified. This is where individuals who have, say, control issues, okay? Or let me give you a better example. Say that you were bullied in school. Okay? You were bullied in school, and then so you don't feel good enough, right?
I can relate to that.
Okay, so you get bullied in school, you don't feel good enough about yourself, and then you get really, really mad, and you go, "I'm going to show them. I'm going to become really, really, really successful, and then show everybody that pushed me around." Okay. By the way, I work with a couple people that were highly successful running this pattern. So what happens is that they become successful, and then what happens is that it magnifies not being good enough. It didn't resolve the problem. So this is where they become really abrasive or dickheads. I don't know if I can use that word, right? But literally,
Sounds about right.
whoever works with you, if you're the boss, it's like that monster boss that nobody wants to work with.
It's like a narcissist.
Exactly.
It's a narcissistic injury that they're compensating for.
Exactly.
Taking energy out of their employees or their customers to fill this growing black hole.
Right. And the problem is that, though, is that the void between their identity gets bigger and bigger. So what that means is that incompleteness, right, or not being good enough, gets bigger and bigger. So it creates more of a wedge in between them, and then they try to close that wedge to feel whole and complete. The way they close that wedge is by force. So they force, like their employees. They're very toxic. Obviously, their home life isn't that grand, right? Their products start to fail or falter. Right, because now the employees say aren't happy, they're not going to manufacture a good product. Right, and if you don't believe me, have you heard of a Friday car?
Friday car, no.
Okay, so the Friday car is basically a lemon.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And they've done research. The cars that turn out to be lemons are usually manufactured on Fridays. When people want to get the hell out of they are.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it filters down to everything that you do in business.
So we've talked about pure source, and when people aren't coming from a place of purity inside.
Yes.
And that might be a bit inflammatory for some of the people watching, because they think, well, how do I get pure inside? And one of the things where I've noticed then people turn to spirituality,
Right.
maybe chanting a certain mantra, maybe praying to a certain deity. There's a great trend amongst, in the New Age to take ayahuasca, to work with the goddess, Pachamama, and for me, what's the definition of that versus the definition of working with source or God or prayer? Like, how can we ensure that the source we're working with is pure?
Right. Really good question. And then to add along with that is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that want to become, say, even more successful, right? So what do? Or they feel guilty or whatever, and then they start turning spiritual, right? And then they get into ayahuasca and things like that to say expand the right way, right? So the right way, or how do you know that you're connected to pure source, is that pure source will never degrade you, destroy anybody else around you. So if you have a religious belief or a spiritual belief, or you go to I don't know, a guru or a teacher, or you go try ayahuasca, and you come back and you start thinking to yourself that that if you have to control somebody, or if you have to be controlled by somebody to ascend higher, then you know you're on the wrong path. Does that make sense to you? So what does that mean? So like in religion, right? And I'm just giving you an extreme version, or in a guru state, or feeling good, or I don't know, whatever else that they do to make you feel good, or chanting. Makes sense. What happens is that if you're connecting to a source that eventually will control you, again, religion is a prime example of that. In religion, there are certain dogmas or standards that you have to abide by, and you don't grow and expand. Although they think that if you do this, you'll grow and expand. But then if you look at religion, they put down every other religion or anything outside of their space, right? So that's not pure source. You get into like spiritual teachers and so on like that tell you, well, you can only do my work and no other work, otherwise it's not clean, right? Or you have to go through me, right? Because I know what's best for you. You don't. You're still the student, right? All those things are ways of being controlled or controlling. So in a pure source version, what happens is that, well, again, whether me or you, again, coming from a pure source, say helper, or I don't know what we would call ourselves, but what happens is that we allow that power to start burning inside of you. It's your innate, say, abundance frequency. Again, we all have that. So a real teacher or a real healer would allow that, say, source energy to start burning inside of you. So as you go through the process, you feel stronger and stronger and stronger and independent of anybody around you. Does that make sense to you? Right? You don't need to control. You don't need to look down upon it about anybody. Again, there's an expansive state. Although to get to that level, you'll have to clean out some of the garbage that's like holding on to you.
One of the things I say to my clients, and I've learned this from working with you, and then I pass this on to working with them, is that when you start to embody and you're not interested in going outside of yourself to connect with an external source,
Exactly.
you kind of strike out the majority of New Age things.
Exactly.
Because those require you to actually leave your body, literally abandon yourself, to literally go out and bring something into yourself.
Right.
And in that act, you're not actually clearing out the impurities, the core issues. You're literally trying to bring abundance and stick it on top of the sort of the issues that were causing the lack of abundance.
Yeah.
And then, so, but then just to kind of simply embody can be a little bit boggling for the mind that needs something a bit more cognitive, a bit more complex. Tangible and tangible, that's simply embodying and bringing your own spirit into your body and flushing out what's not you.
Right.
How could that bring you abundance and purify you?
So how can that bring you abundance and purify you? So if you're trying to accumulate things outside of yourself, it just starts to destroy you. That's why, like, wealth, success, starting a business can never, say, create happiness or completeness for you, because you're starting to define who you are from the outside, like you said, right? Our work, what we do is like, well, let's define who you are on the inside, and as you become more understanding of yourself, right? You understand, say, the complexities of who you are. You get to face the shadows or the weaknesses of who you are, up front, right? You get to know, say, the honest, the the bare or naked truth of who you are, and then work on yourself. And we do it at a very fast pace. It doesn't take years, by the way. It's a very fast, say, process or course. Um, you get to strengthen, right? Your light starts to shine. And your light starts to shine from within, not outside a source. So this goes outside of, say, God or a definition of God, or it's religious, or anything like that. But what happens is that, say, your abundance starts to come in, and then you start attracting of like frequencies. So if you're resonating with abundance, okay, and this is 360 degrees of abundance that I talk about, not just like segments or fragments where you make a lot of money, but then you destroy every other aspect of yourself, right? This is that you burn completely, you burn your own light, your own brilliance, right? And when I say that, I'm not saying adhere to a standard. Again, I stress that it's not a religious practice. It's not a spiritual practice. It's understanding, say, your purest, like, concentrated version of who you are. Your highest self without any distortions of family lineage, your history of abuse or shortcomings or anything like that. Your best possible self, let's say that. Okay? The best you that you can be. When you can operate from that practice without faking it, you just are. When you can, say, wake up in the morning and you don't have to take 2 or 3 hours to get you into that zone of, say, motivation or completeness. You just are. Um, um, when you can get to that point, okay, you can create success otherwise, but it won't create functional success or significant success. The abundance around you just starts to show up.
And I can give you a practical example of
Wonderful.
like from working with you, Maz, and learning to still myself into my body
Perfect.
and to embody the frequencies of more of source inside my body. I went on a free social media training because I just wanted to like freshen it up, and I wanted to turn my website into a better tool
Right.
to make money.
Of course.
Because I've invested quite a lot of time,
Right.
and it's not really giving me the return. So I wanted to get a better autoresponder, MailChimp, wanted to link that in to create a database of interested people who really want to purchase my services. So I went to this free training, and the lady was completely inspiring. And I'm going to be hiring her now to help with my website and to build it into something. And then I had this idea. I saw another free course in social media training, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go on that as well because I can learn some more things. And I just sat with my stillness, and I thought, well, actually, no, I don't need that. And it's like, so I could see that pattern of just going off in tangents and spinning around and just, not being productive with my time, and actually pull myself back in, and therefore I can make better business decisions for my business.
Right.
And apply, and then the natural sense of where to apply my natural entrepreneurial intelligence gets better directed because I'm actually sitting with pure source, and then it actually makes you a better entrepreneur.
Oh, exactly.
Because your instinct, I think most people, once they clear out the nonsense, they actually just intuitively, if they can just sit in that embodied, centered place, they make better commercial decisions, they make better personnel decisions, because you're not seeking something outside of yourself to pull it in to then stabilize yourself.
Exactly. Well, you'd be on autopilot. You've noticed, and the people I've worked with, they stop making, say, decisions at a conscious level. Okay? Your brain is not a conscious processing. It's not a problem-solving tool. It's a processing tool. So if you look at it at a deeper level, look at any successful entrepreneur that's came up with a bright idea, or look at any inventor, or look at Tesla or Einstein, or people at those levels. They didn't say solve any problems at a conscious level. They never did. Right? It was always like they would study the problem, right? But they were so clear that connection between, say, their higher self, or you want to call it your spirit, whatever you want to call it, and say them. So, so they would study or analyze what was there. Um, well, Einstein or who's it, Edison, they would go to sleep. They would go take naps.
Mm.
They'd wake up, and then the solution would be there. So that's where you. That's the process that you wanted to connect.
Mm.
Right? But most individuals, what they do is like they start making conscious decisions, and they weigh out, the pros and the cons at a conscious level. But there are so many other variables that are behind that we don't even know about when we're making decisions like that. So if we even like start to allow that to, say, get processed at a higher level, if you want to call it subconscious, but it's actually much higher than that. You start to make, say, better decisions. But you not only actually make better decisions, you literally attract the wherewithal for that decision to, say, fruition. By the way, that's how successful entrepreneurs do it. And they might call it like magic, right? How they can materialize. That's how they do it.
So rather than working with the natural brain's tendency to just repeat old habits,
Exactly.
they can step outside of that, take a nap, or the eureka moment, go and have a shower. And it's actually when the brain isn't performing menial, repetitive, regurgitating ways of being that actually the genius moments can come in. It's the gaps, it's the present state, and it's purifying your consciousness, clearing your being out. So you literally make space for the genius state to be more anchored in through this sort of work.
Exactly. So, and to get into that genius state, well, you would have to clear out a lot of, say, internal distortions within you, and that's what we've been talking about.
And maybe we can do that right now. We can, create a meta healing or a meditation to anchor in a purification, to create space, to then bring in the sort of the genius, the entrepreneurial genius state.
Of course, we can do that.
I'll just press pause,
Okay.
and then we can do it on a separate recording.
Perfect.